Fill your hands, you son of a bitch. Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining me today. I do truly appreciate it. And I've recently read a book upon which two movies were based. The book is called True Grit by Charles Portis. And I've always been, not always, for years and years and years and years, I've been a big fan of Rooster Cogburn, John Wayne, and True Grit was the movie. It was the gateway drug, if you will, that made me a John Wayne fan. And then the Coen brothers, Jeff Bridges movie came out, and I really dug that movie as well. This is not really a movie video, but to compare notes, to me, John Wayne is Rooster Cogburn. Jeff Bridges is the Big Lebowski. He's a character like that. When I see Jeff Bridges, I kind of tend to think of a more fun, lighthearted, goofy, silly character. But he was phenomenal as Rooster Cogburn. For me, it just didn't quite feel right. However, the Coen brothers film, in practically every other way, was better. I know, sacrilege. I love both movies, but if I'm going to go watch one today, it's going to star John Wayne, guaranteed, when I watch True Grit. Now, the painful part is after being a fan of the movie starring John Wayne for so many years, and having been a reader for so many years, I've never read True Grit. What a crime. I feel ashamed. But I've remedied that. And now I've read it, and I'm here to tell you, it was fabulous. A great book, terrific book. I loved it. One of the issues that I've had is one that I've actually done a very good job, I think, of overcoming. And that's the issue of, I've seen the movie many times, why should I read the book? I think that might be a disease that a lot of folks out there have, and it's one that I've suffered from. But I'm in recovery. It's a day-by-day sort of a situation where every day I've got to wake up and I've got to determine that I am willing to read a book after seeing the movie over and over and over. Talking to you, Jaws. Talking to you, The Exorcist. Talking to you, The Godfather. So many examples. And yes, True Grit, you're on the list. Fabulous book. Doesn't take away from the fabulous movies. Which one's better? I do not know. I cannot say. However, reading this book after watching those movies, especially the John Wayne version so many times, is kind of like going home. It's like sliding on your favorite pair of shoes. It just fits. Feels right. And I already said it. Fabulous book. And I think this makes a good gateway book for people like me also. Strange, I feel, but I've had a somewhat difficult relationship with Westerns over my life. As a boy, growing up, all the old men in my life were watching Westerns, and I was wanting to watch Arnold Schwarzenegger, professional wrestling, maybe even Sylvester Stallone. I was wanting to watch that kind of stuff, Chuck Norris, and I didn't really have much interest in the guys riding horses, wearing hats, and the dusty trails, black and white or in color. I had no interest. And then at some point in my life, a whole new world was opened up to me. I got rid of that prejudice, I put it aside, and I started watching the Westerns. It actually started with a movie called Tombstone, which I think did the same thing for a lot of people. I watched Tombstone, I loved the movie, and it was a Western. And so I was now all of a sudden open to the concept that a Western can be a good movie. The problem was, it was a new movie. It's not an old movie, which most of the great Westerns to me were old movies. But it was a gateway. It was like a foot in the door. And so I started trying other ones, like Unforgiven, another one of the greatest movies that was ever made, starring Clint Eastwood and Morgan Freeman. And again, I'm in the door just a little bit farther. And then I start trying other movies, start trying things on for size. Just what are the best Westerns? And you start watching them, saying, I'm not going to like this, but I'm going to watch it anyway. And before you know it, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, to me, is the greatest movie that was ever made. Big fan, big Western fan. problem is that didn't really translate into books for me. I've not been a big Western reader in terms of books, and it's time to fix it, solve that problem, overcome that hurdle. And True Grit isn't a personal, intentional attempt to do that. So I read True Grit after seeing the John Wayne movie probably 20 times in my life, and I loved it. And here's another example of the True Grit book. This one's from the Folio Society. It is illustrated. And if you want to see it, I've done a book unboxing video for it, as well as a Folio Society collection. But I would like to show this one off. It looks really good. But if you've watched the movies, especially if you've watched both, the book does feel very familiar. It's one that both movies actually did a pretty good job of adapting this book into movies. And in a nutshell, maybe you've seen it, maybe you haven't, but this little lady right here, Maddie Ross, her father's been killed. Her father went to this town, to buy Texas bush ponies or some small Texas horses. He was going to use them for hunting. He thought they'd be great for hunting. So he took a guy that he'd kind of brought in, Tom Chaney, down on his luck fella, moved him into the barn. He took him to town with him. Tom Chaney gets drunk, loses a game of cards. He goes to get a rifle to go kill the guy who cheated him. And Maddie's dad, feeling responsible for Tom Chaney, tries to stop him. Tom Chaney kills him, and off we go. Now, Maddie's come to this town to collect her father's things, to settle his affairs. Officially, that's why she came to town. And she brought a friend of the family, a guy who helps out, a hired hand, I can't remember his name, an employee of sorts. In the book, he's a neighbor, which is slightly different, but he's a neighbor and he's helping out in the book. Because Maddie's dad is dead. Maddie's mom now is a widow with 3 kids. But secretly, she goes to this town to hire somebody to kill Tom Chaney, the guy who killed her father. And so she, like in the books, like both movies, she asks around, and they say, hey, Marshal Rooster J. Cogburn is the meanest of all the marshals. He's the meanest. So if you want to hire somebody to go get somebody in the Indian Territory, you hire Rooster Cogburn. He's the meanest. However, I doubt you'd want to spend time with him because he is the meanest. And she says, hey, I need somebody with grit. Rooster Cogburn sounds like a man with grit. And so she sets off to hire Rooster Cogburn. They come to an agreement, and he accepts, and they're going to go catch this Tom Chaney, bring him to justice for killing her father. Meanwhile, there is a Texas Ranger named LaBeef, who's come to town also to catch Tom Chaney under a different name for killing a Texas senator and his dog. Maddie's got no interest in Tom Chaney being punished for killing a senator's dog. And, of course, LaBeef makes a point of saying it's for killing the senator, too. But LaBeef knows there's big money in catching this guy and bringing him back because he killed an important person, and it also would look very good for him with the young lady that he is sweet on. Good motivation. Anyway, she says, heck no, got no interest. Me and Rooster's going to go catch him. He's going to be punished for killing my father. And then LaBeef makes an offer to Rooster Cogburn, all the money he can make by going his way. Rooster doesn't see it as being important on where he's hanged, what he's hanged for. He says Tom Chaney gets his and I get mine, and that's the deal I'm going to take instead. Well, Maddie, again, she's not having it. She's a determined young lady, and she's going to go meet them, and she's going to help catch Tom Chaney. And they try to stop her, and she overcomes. And they decide at the end of the day, reluctantly, begrudgingly, to let her come along. And I won't tell you much more about that, except Tom Chaney is hooked up with a band of baddies led by Lucky Ned Pepper. In the first movie, is played by Robert Duvall. And Ned Pepper in the in the book is written almost exactly the way Robert Duvall plays it. And that's one of the things I found with this book. The characters in the first movie are so much like the characters in the book. I would say LaBeef has always been my biggest beef with the John Wayne film. Glenn Campbell, heck of a guitar player, very popular singer, but I've never been a fan of his singing voice and definitely never been a fan of his acting, at least not in the movie True Grit. I found the Coen brothers film, Matt Damon playing LaBeef, I liked him a lot better. He was a blowhard. He was a show-off. He was a banny rooster. But he made more sense. I kind of understood it. The problem is that I don't think either character really catches the gist of LaBeef in the book. I think LaBeef in the book is a little bit less silly. He is a little bit more reliable. And he's a little bit better at being a ranger and being a cowboy and all that kind of stuff. He still has his quirks. And Matty Ross does mention his cowlick multiple times and how proud of it he is and such as that. But I found I liked him better in the book. And like I said, Lucky Ned Pepper, the ultimate villain. They're chasing Tom Chaney, but he's hooked in working for Lucky Ned Pepper, who is one bad dude. Tom Chaney's kind of a loser, and he says it over and over. Everything goes wrong for him. He makes bad decisions, and he does bad things because of those bad decisions. A guy with low scruples. Now, there are some facts and details that occur in the book that one movie gets more accurate than the other, and I won't get into that because they're getting into spoiler territory, which I don't mind spoiling things. Really got no problem with it, but it seems like it just makes people mad. So I'll try not to do such a thing. There are events, technicalities that come on later in the book that makes one movie more accurate than the other, which is just, I mention it because it is a point in one favor or the other. One of the things that I also liked about the book more, besides the fact that I think LaBeef was a better character, more likable character, and someone that you may be able to say, hurrah for the man from Texas, like Matty does in the book, and I think both movies as well. But I like Matty Ross from Yale County near Dardanelle better in the book than I did in either one of the movies. She's still got that shrewd negotiator. She still got that business sense. But I think in the book, a lot of the things that she says from the movie that makes you think, well, she's really kind of a jerk. In the book, she thinks them. She doesn't say them. And I think, to me, that's a big point. And it's tough to do in a movie without having a narrator to get the same stuff across without having the character say it, because you don't know what they're thinking. But in the book, you know what they're thinking. They're not necessarily saying it. But I say that's a big important point because there's a lot of things that I think that I do not say, because if I were to say it, it would piss people off, and I wouldn't be as popular of a fellow as I am today. Sorry, just being silly. But I'd piss a lot of people off if I said all the things that I think. So the good thing is, I think we kind of get a pass on our thoughts, which is nice, because they're not always good. So I can think some bad things about people. I can think some bad observations or some insults about people. But if I don't say it, I don't get the rap for being a jerk. I don't piss the people off and stuff like that. And I think that's the difference. A lot of the stuff that she says in the movies that makes her kind of a jerk, she thinks them in the book. And so I liked Matty Ross in the book a whole lot more than I liked her in either movie as well. Rooster Cogburn is John Wayne. In this book, when you read this book, if you've ever seen the John Wayne film, this is John Wayne. Practically word for word. He says it all exactly the same. He acts all exactly the same. There's a few minor details on how things happened here and there that might be slightly different, but it's John Wayne playing this character in this book. It's like Charles Portis wrote this book for an old man version of the Duke, which I do truly appreciate. And I would say True Grit is a gateway Western. If you're kind of soft on reading Westerns, I recommend True Grit. I think it's one, the characters are good enough, the dialogue is good enough, the story is simple enough. I think it's one that will be fun for you, will be a good read for you, and maybe help ignite opportunity or a willingness to try on more of the great Western books. And that's my goal, to try out more of the great Western books. And so when it comes down to how do I rate it, I know everybody wants to know, what do you rate it? What's the reductive rating in its terrific YouTube channel world, whatever they call that thing? And it's tough because I want to say 5, but I can't say it's a perfect book. There were moments in this book where I thought, okay, move on. Not much and not for long, but I did have that feeling a little bit, so I can't give it a 5. But 4 doesn't really sound right to me, so I'm going to cheat. It's my rules. I'll say 4.5. What do you think about that? 4.5 stars out of 5. Hold on a minute. Stars, let's make this corn dodgers. 4.5 corn dodgers thrown in the air and shot at with a pistol or a rifle. 4.5 corn dodgers out of 5. With that being said, I can think of no more lies to tell. Thank you for your time. Thanks for joining me today. I do truly appreciate it. C'est la vie, baby. And why don't you come see a fat old man sometime?
Hey Doc, 2 more going on yours.